Hello, my name's David Inman and welcome to this video on all of the RICS APC mandatory competencies. In this video we're going to cover all of the mandatory competencies from the one you need to do at level 3, which is ethics, rules of conduct and professionalism, the 3 that you need to do at level 2, which is client care, communication and negotiation, plus all of the ones you need to do at level 1. And we're also going to include the 3 competencies that you need to do for the senior professional assessment. Now there's 2 ways of watching this video. You can either watch it all the way through, or you can follow the link in the description below to a playlist of all the individual videos, because this is a compilation of all of our recent APC bite-size mandatory competency webinars. Please don't take the mandatory competencies lightly. Please focus on them all. And don't forget, read the guidance. And as always, good luck with your APC and enjoy the video.
Hi everybody and welcome to our latest bite-size APC mandatory competency APC expert webinar. And this time it's on everybody's favourite: ethics, rules of conduct and professionalism. Now before I start, a word of warning. If you get anything at final assessments or within your submissions wrong regarding this competency, you will be referred. At the end of the day, you need to know the rules of the organisation that you wish to join as a professional member, and the ethics involved around your professional delivery and professional conduct. And it's about your personal values and ethics, and how RICS professional and ethical standards promote integrity, trust and respect, not only in the profession but in yourself. There are 5 RICS ethical and professional standards, and these are: act with integrity, always provide a high standard of service, act in a way that promotes trust in the profession, treat others with respect, and take responsibility. Now at final assessment, you may be asked to name all of them or a specified number, but not only you must learn the 5, you must be able to apply them to your work and the work you've done leading up to your APC. This is the only mandatory competency where all candidates must do up to level 3. I'm just going to briefly discuss the competency levels. Level 1 is having the knowledge and the technical knowledge. Level 2 is applying the technical knowledge and doing the work. And level 3 is giving independent, reasoned professional advice. So at competency level 1, you must demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the role and significance of RICS and its functions. Don't forget, you need to understand the mechanics and the workings of the organisation you wish to join as a professional member. And you must demonstrate your personal professional role and society's expectations of professional practice issued by RICS, RICS Code of Conduct, and conduct regulations issued by RICS. And don't forget, these include the general principle of law and the legal system as applicable in your country of practice. So this implies that to be ethical and professional in your work, you must be legally compliant and understand the law and be able to apply it. It includes the structure of RICS, the 5 global and professional ethical standards that we've covered, mandatory professional statements, guidance notes and their status, RICS's CPD policy for when you pass your APC, the role of professional groups within RICS, and other bodies within RICS such as RICS Matrix and Lionheart. It's vital you must understand rules of conduct for both members and firms. And you must know rules of conduct for firms as if you are running an RICS regulated firm. You must be aware of RICS bylaws and government legislation and regulations related to your area of practice, and there may be a big crossover here to other competencies. And related to your area of practice, you must have an understanding of common law and relevant case law. Now, moving up to level 2, you must provide evidence of practical application of ethics, rules of conduct and professionalism in your area of practice. And doing this, you must be able to justify your actions at all times and demonstrate your personal commitment to the rules of conduct, ethics and RICS standards. And this can involve your involvement with RICS. If there's a local RICS matrix local to you, or you've got access to one online, please get involved. I've been involved in various RICS committees and groups, including matrix groups, since 2006. And it's true, the more you put in, the more you get out. But being involved with RICS, whether it be at matrix level or in any other groups, shows you're involved and you're committed to the organisation you're applying to join as a professional member. You must be able to identify conflicts of interest. You must understand how to demonstrate transparency in professional fees. You must be able to check terms of appointments for compliance with RICS rules. You must have an understanding on how to comply with RICS's CPD policy for members, both as an APC candidate and, when you pass, as a practising chartered surveyor. You must know the RICS rules and advice on handling gifts and hospitality. And you must be able to check your employer's compliance with RICS rules for firms. As I've said before, you must understand RICS rules of conduct for firms, even if you are not employed or may never be employed by an RICS regulated firm. You never know. One day you may want to set up in practice on your own as an RICS regulated firm. So you must understand the rules of conduct for firms, even if you don't work for such a firm. Level 3 of this competency is providing practical application in the area of practice in the context of advising clients. APC candidates come from a wide range of employers, both in the public sector and private sector, and sometimes from the third sector. But you must know the RICS rules of conduct for firms, as I've said, as if you are running a firm. And this includes how to deal with a complaint, how to handle clients' money. I've never handled any client's money, but my APC, I have to understand and explain, if I were to handle clients' money, what do I need to do? You need to know, if you were to set up on your own in business, what level of professional indemnity insurance would you need? Where would you buy this insurance from? And what level of run-off cover is needed? And you need to know how to register a firm as being regulated with RICS. You may have expected to get all the answers from this webinar. Well, we just don't have the time. However, I do run online a 1.5 hour formal course on the competency, and this includes a simulated level 3 exercise where you'll be expected to map out and document what you will need to do to set up in practice. So you'll be setting up on paper a pretend imaginary firm ready to apply for regulation with RICS. There is a small charge for the course. We've tried to keep it as cost effective as we can. We've got some great feedback from past delegates, and I'll put the link to the course in the description below. This course delves deep into this competency, including rules of conduct for members and firms, how to prepare this competency for final assessments, and as I've said, it has a simulated level 3 exercise because it is difficult if you're not running a firm to actually be delivering at level 3 for this competency. And as assessors, we understand this. But you've got to be game ready, because as soon as you get the letters after your name saying MRICS, you can go out there and register a firm and request to be regulated by RICS. So you've got to be ready as soon as you pass your APC. In terms of the course, you've got full lifetime access. You can access it on your mobile or on a computer, and at the end you'll be issued a certificate of completion from Udemy. A lot of people are quite concerned about this competency, but there's nothing to it that you can't actually learn. And it's a great competency to be able to go into final assessments and think, I know everything at level 1, 2 and 3 about this competency. I'm looking forward to the assessors asking me questions about this competency, and by doing that, stress levels will go down, and also by going into final assessment, knowing this subject extremely well, you'll know that at the end of your interview, when the chair asks you questions on ethics, rules of conduct and professionalism, you'll know them, and you'll be able to give great answers, and you'll be able to go into your APC final assessments with great confidence. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it, please tell your friends and colleagues if you found it useful, and we're going to be adding regular content onto the channel, so if you've liked the channel, please subscribe. As always, I end our webinars by saying good luck with your APC, and thanks very much for watching. Hi everybody, and welcome to our latest bite-size APC mandatory competency webinar, this time on client care. Please note that all candidates must do level 2 as a minimum of this competency, but let's start at level 1. Level 1, as always, is knowledge and understanding, but it's about the mechanics of client care. Now, clients come in all forms and organisations. You may work as an internal service provider in an organisation. You may be working to third-party commercial clients. You may be working for members of the public who are your clients. A big part of this is to identify all your clients, all your colleagues, and any third parties, and the relationship you have between different parties. You must know how to manage complaints. Now, RICS rules of conduct for firms, for RICS regulated firms, have some very specific requirements on complaint handling. Now, even if you don't work for an RICS regulated firm, you must know how RICS regulated firms are expected to manage complaints. Don't forget, the minute you pass your APC, you can go out, quit your current job and set up in practice as an RICS regulated firm. So you've got to be expected to know this. You may have no ambitions or inclination ever to run an RICS regulated firm, but you've got to know the rules on how these firms run. And to do this, you can't do it in isolation. You've got to gather and analyse performance data related to your clients. And a big part of this is complaints, compliments, and how you manage information and measure your performance with your clients. This competency is very much linked to the ethics, rules of conduct and professionalism competency. So again, you've got to know your legal status in terms of your and your employee's relationship with your clients, whether they be internal to your organisation or external, and RICS requirements of your professional indemnity policy and the limits within it, the transparency of your fees, forms of appointments when you take on work, how to identify stakeholders and what relationship they have with you, managing formal communications with your clients, as I've said, complaint handling procedure, and identifying and using key performance indicators related to your performance or your organisation's performance in dealing with your clients. Some vital reading for this competency is the RICS Professional Statement on Countering Bribery and Corruption, Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing. This is a key document published by RICS that is a mandatory requirement for all members. So I recommend you download a copy from the RICS website, read it and understand it in the context especially of your current employment. I'm going to talk a little bit now about ISO 9001 Quality Management Systems. ISO 9001 2015 being the international standard for quality management. I want to make this perfectly clear. ISO 9001 and understanding it is not a requirement of the APC, but its concepts can help you deliver, manage and understand this competency. A key part of quality management are the resources used, whether they be people, your business infrastructure, your working environment, your desk space, where the physical place that you're working, and any monitoring and measuring resources that may be available to you. I'm actually delivering this webinar during the COVID-19 coronavirus lockdown, which has really affected business infrastructure and people's working environment in most cases. Most people I deal with in business are working from home, and the business infrastructure is delivered through their home, whether it be IT, communications, or even a desk or a quiet place to sit at. So think about all these now and in the future and how they affect the delivery of your services and how these drive your customer care. Don't forget, in the RICS's Royal Charter, which is available to download and read on the RICS website, and I recommend you do so because it is an interesting document to how our organisation is founded at its core. But in the Royal Charter it says the profession must maintain and promote the usefulness of the profession for the public advantage. So it's the usefulness, it's the delivery of quality services and customer care that's the heart of everything we do as a profession. In your current organisation, have a look at what processes are in place. ISO 9001 takes a process approach where business inputs and outputs and the sequence of their interaction are defined and looked at. So you may want to do this in your own organisation. It doesn't matter or not if you have 9001 certification or not. Start looking at your own business processes and the sequence in which they happen, such as when a new inquiry comes in, is a job number raised, is a new job file, who's responsible for it? And think about the traceability of the job from the initial inquiry right up to final settlement, payment or agreement or completion of the project, and maybe afterwards if any claims arise. So look at what are your employees' processes and also look at what processes RICS may require in your technical specialism, whether it be a Red Book valuation or a building survey. Look at the RICS processes too. Now I've mentioned KPI, and the competency looks at KPIs and asks you to use them, but I wouldn't recommend you go out and start analysing client care and KPIs without using a method. ISO 9001 states that you do need criteria and methods to monitor your work, measure your work, and to set performance indicators. So it's very important to have a method behind your measurement. Just out of interest, ISO 9001 is structured as any other management system standard on a plan, do, check approach. There's 10 clauses, the first 3 being really a preamble and an introduction, but 4 to 10 are what the standard's based on. So if your company has ISO 9001, getting involved and speaking to the quality manager or their equivalent about how your quality management and customer care in your organisation takes place, that'll be really helpful for this competency. If you don't have ISO 9001 certification, don't worry about it, but start to look at your own processes in your own organisation. So everybody's got to level 2, and this is actually managing clients. This is the day-to-day client management. You may work in a role where you have limited exposure to clients, but you still need to understand how your organisation manages complaints, client interaction, and the day-to-day relationship you have with your clients, whether it be internal to your own organisation or external. Examples of topics you might want to look at for level 2 is KPIs, as we mentioned. If you're dealing with statutory authorities over consents, that's a really good way to demonstrate client care. You might want to write a fee proposal at level 2. You might want to confirm a client brief or dealing with complaints. So it's the day-to-day management of your clients. Level 3 I wouldn't attempt unless your role is specifically advising clients on the management of their business. So it really is business management consultancy at level 3. If you'd like to learn more about ethics, rules of conduct and professionalism, we run a specific and very detailed course on this competency on Udemy, and I'll put the link to the course below. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so and you enjoy the content on the channel, please subscribe. And if you think this will be useful to your colleagues or friends, please tell them about our free content on our YouTube channel. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye. Hi everybody, my name's David Inman, and welcome to our latest bite-size APC Mandatory Competency webinar, this time on the Communication and Negotiation Competency. For Level 1, you've got to understand why various types of effective communications are important, relevant to different situations. And these types of communications range from oral communications, written, and graphical. In terms of specifically for your APC, please make sure that any graphics are clear and assessors can read it. Also, please don't be tempted to use graphics or illustrations or photographs just for the sake of it. They've got to be meaningful and relevant to your APC submission and final assessment presentation. Also for this competency, it's vital that you understand why presentation skills are important, because at final assessment you are going to make a 10-minute presentation to the assessors. So it's vital you understand the reasoning behind your presentation itself, why you're doing it, what you're saying, and any questions that can arise from your presentation. Level 2 of this competency, and don't forget all candidates must achieve Level 2 for this competency. You must apply the different forms of communication in various situations, especially where negotiations are involved. Don't forget, being an effective negotiator is key to being a property professional and a chartered surveyor. So you've got to show application not only during your final assessment, but during your written submissions and any questions that the assessors may pose to you. If you want to do Level 3 for this competency, this is about evidencing the effectiveness of your communications in various situations. This competency would be ideally suited for somebody giving sales presentations, and maybe somebody in an educational setting who is evaluated on the presentation skills. A great way to practice your presentation is engaging with your local RICS Matrix group if there is one. Matrix is usually a lively group of fellow professionals from RICS, and it's great to interact with people, not only just about the APC, but make friends and communicate to people, maybe in a social setting, from similar professional backgrounds. I was involved in RICS Matrix many years ago, Made some really good friends, and we're still good friends today, and some of us even do business together now. So it's a really good foundation for your career, and I can't recommend it enough. This is a rather short presentation because I'd rather refer you to our free course on Udemy on effective communication skills for business. This course will look at some of the mechanics of written, graphical and oral communications, plus presentation skills, video presentations, the whole range of business communications. It's completely free, and I'll put the link to the course in the writing below. More specific to the APC, and in particular what evidence you need to submit in written format, and what you're going to expect at final assessment, we've also got a course on Udemy. There is a small charge for this, but Udemy often give discounts and offer marketing promotions to reduce its price. This is a course on the APC from enrolment to final assessment explained. And similarly, I'll put a link to the course in the text below. Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It's great to see the number of subscribers to the channel growing, and if you've liked this video or any others, please tell your colleagues, please tell your friends. All likes and viewings is very much appreciated, and we thank everybody for watching today. Don't forget, with communications, the more you practice, the more you improve. So good luck with your APC, and get out there and communicate effectively. Thanks for watching. Hi everybody, my name's David Inman, and welcome to this latest APC Expert webinar, and it's part of our bite-sized mandatory competency series, and this time we're going to talk about health and safety. I'd like to start off by saying the health and safety competency is one that concerns me as an APC assessor. I do see a significant amount of candidates being referred on the health and safety competency. This webinar we're going to be looking at some tips on how to overcome it and how to prepare for your final assessments as not to trip yourselves up with this competency. So for level 1, the candidates must have to understand the principles and responsibilities of health and safety law, codes of practice and other regulations applicable to your area of practice. And understand means understand, not just have read it. To help with this, let's go back to definitions, some basic health and safety terminology. First of all, what is the definition of an accident? Well, an accident are undesired circumstances that give rise to ill health or injury, damage to property, plant, products, or the environment, production losses, or increased liabilities. Now, an incident are again undesired circumstances and near misses, but this time which could cause accidents. Ill health are undesired circumstances which give rise to acute and chronic ill health caused by physical, chemical or biological agents, as well as adverse effects on mental health. A hazard is anything that may cause harm, such as chemicals, electricity, working at height from ladders. There's quite a long list of hazards in the workplace, but it's up to you to identify them. And the definition of risk. Risk is the chance, whether it be high or low, that someone could be harmed by these or other hazards, together with an indication of how serious the harm could be. A classic APC question is, can you tell me please what is the difference between a hazard and a risk? A hazard is something that may cause harm, and the risk is the chance of it happening. Now moving on to legislation. In the UK, there's quite a lot of it. but applicable again to your area of practice, you must know it, understand it, and know how to apply it. A good starting point to know how to apply health and safety legislation is go back to your employer and ask them, or ask particularly the person who advises on health and safety, how you should be applying some of the key concepts. In terms of understanding legislation, be prepared at final assessment to explain relevant legal requirements involved in your work. Please also remember, if you include legal requirements, approved code of practices, health and safety standards in your written APC submissions, you must understand it because you may be asked questions on it. Now, for this competency, all candidates must do Level 2, which is actively applying the principles and requirements. If you are thinking about doing Level 3, this is giving reasoned advice to clients and others on applying the principles and requirements of health and safety. Here we stretch rather into health and safety consultancy. So be careful if you want to do Level 3, because we are talking here about giving practical advice to others on health and safety. Some key topics I would focus on, but again, health and safety requirements relate to your area of practice, but some key ones I would look at are definitely risk assessments, and for this, speak to the person in your organisation who carries out the risk assessment and ask them how they prepare it and how it's done. Look at the hierarchy of controls. Look at CDM, lawn working, COSH, working at height, asbestos, fire safety, and at the moment COVID-19. Some examples of this is lawn working. Check what the legal requirements are, and also check what your employer's requirements are. Many chartered surveyors, including myself, do a lot of lawn working and have robust arrangements in place to protect ourselves and others around us. Another common one is working at height. You need to know at what level from the ground working at height becomes applicable. We need to know what controls can be put in place. We need to know whether the hazard can actually be removed so we don't have to work at height. So this list isn't exhaustive, but start thinking about your area of practice and what the hazards are, and how you or your employer assesses the risk, and apply the controls into your day-to-day works, both to protect yourself, others around you, and the general public. I'm going to talk now about the RICS Surveying Safely Guidance. Declaring that you've read it does not meet the requirements of the Level 1 Health and Safety APC competency. You need to understand the concepts within it, apply it to your area of practice, and apply statutory requirements for a deeper understanding. Please remember, this is just guidance given by RICS. It isn't legislation. It's purely guidance. Personally, I'm not a big fan of surveying safely. I'd rather go to the source legislation or the source approved code of practice published in the UK by the Health and Safety Executive. By all means, read and understand surveying safely, but I think you'll get more benefits from understanding your employer's health and safety arrangements and how you're applying relevant legislation. Thanks very much again for watching. I'm going to include the links in our channel to the other 2 health and safety videos that we've prepared in the past. Hope you find them useful. If you enjoyed today's webinar, if you found it useful, please subscribe. Everybody, please stay safe. Don't forget, you've got a responsibility to keep yourself safe. That's why you need to understand all the requirements of health and safety legislation. And if you do that, you'll be okay for Level 1 APC. So you've got a responsibility for yourself, for others around you, and the general public. In the UK, we've got a responsibility for the general public under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. So please, everybody stay safe, and I hope to see you again very soon. Thanks for watching. Hi there everybody, hope you're all keeping well. My name's David Inman, and today's bite-sized APC mandatory competency webinar is about accounting principles and procedures. Now, before we start, I am not an accountant. I am a chartered surveyor. But I think this is a fantastic competency, not just for the APC, but for business life in general. It's vital in business that we all know about company finances, whether you run a company such as myself or you work for a company. It's really important. And in terms of this competency, with your APC, you get involved in lots of business functions. And I have seen candidates over the years get unstuck and get into trouble answering questions about accounting theory. And they've not been able to answer basic questions. So this webinar, we're going to have a look at the basics of accounting and help you with your APC. I'd just like to say thanks to everybody who watches our channel, and if you like our videos, please subscribe, please tell your friends and colleagues about us. We really do appreciate it. So level 1, as always, is about understanding the topic, and it's about accounting concepts, format and preparation of management and company accounts, and this includes profit and loss statements, cash flow statements and balance sheets. Now, if you're employed by a company, try and get a copy of the final accounts and ask your employer how they're prepared. This will be really useful for you with this competency. In the public sector, if you work there, ask how the organisation you work for prepares their accounts and what are the legal requirements within your employer's world. Please, for this competency, don't submit that you do your expenses. Great, you do your expenses, but that's not accounting. So avoid that, but make sure you understand the accounting processes of the organisation that you work for. For this webinar, we're going to focus on the UK, because that's where I practice and that's where I live. But candidates outside of the UK watching this, please do the same in your country of practice. So in the UK, a company must deliver accounts every year to Companies House, even if the company is dormant. Non-compliance with this might lead to the UK government assuming that the company is no longer carrying on business or in operation, and the government can take steps to strike it from the register. If the company is struck off the register, it ceases to exist, and its assets become Crown property. In the UK, you must keep accounting records as a business, and these accounting records must contain records showing all money received and spent by the company, and a record of the assets and liabilities, which is basically what you have in terms of capital and money and what you are. So assets and liabilities. If the company deals in goods, the records must contain statements of stock held by the company at the end of each financial year. All statements of stock takings this statement is based on must also be in the records. And it must also keep statements of all goods sold and purchased, except goods sold to the members of the public by retail sellers. But these statements of all goods must contain listings of goods, the buyers and the sellers. Private companies must keep accounting records for 3 years from the date they were made, and public companies must keep them for 6 years. Records can be kept in digital or paper format. The actual accounts in the UK must include the profits and loss account, a balance sheet signed by a director on behalf of the board, notes to the accounts, and any accounts, if applicable, to a wider corporate group that the company controls. Accounts must generally be accompanied by a director's report, signed by a company secretary or a director, a business review if the company does not qualify as a small business, and we're going to be looking at this a little bit later on, and an auditor's report stating the name of the auditor and signed and dated by them, unless the company is exempt from audit. We're going to look at exemptions from audit a little bit later also. In the UK, there is no requirement for companies to use a professional accountant. You can do them yourselves. However, professional advice will help meet legal requirements. There are 6 chartered accountancy professional bodies in the UK and Ireland. My accountant is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, who are the regulating body, as is RICS, the regulating body of chartered surveyors. Behind accounting theory, there are standards. And at the top level, there's the International Financial Reporting Standard, or IFRS. These set common rules so that finance statements through the world can be consistent, transparent, and comparable across the world. And IFRS are issued by the International Accounting Standards Board. In the UK, accountants use generally accepted accounting practice, which is called UK GAAP. And this body of accounting standards is published by the UK's Financial Reporting Council. We're now going to look at some accounting terminology, starting with profit and loss statement. The profit and loss, or P&L statement, is a financial statement that summarises the revenues, costs, and expenses incurred during a specified period, usually a fiscal quarter of the year. Gross profit is the profit a company makes after deducting the costs associated with making and selling its products or the costs associated with providing its services. So gross profit equals the revenue minus the costs. Net profit, also called net earnings, is the net income and informally known as the bottom line. And it's calculated by adding up a business's total expenses and subtracting that from its revenue. So total revenue minus all the expenses equals net profit. We've already talked about financial auditing, and this is when auditors come in behind accountants and verify their work. They examine the financial statements prepared by accountants and ensure that they represent the company's financial position accurately. In the UK, small and micro-sized businesses are exempt from auditing, and to qualify, they must meet any 2 of the following. Their annual turnover must not be more than £10.2 million a year. The balance sheet total must not be more than £5.1 million, and the average number of employees must not be more than 50. So level 1 of this competency looks at your knowledge and understanding of accounting concepts, which we've had a look at today. Level 2 of this competency is to interpret accounts and balance statements and apply appropriate accounting and legal standards. And level 3 is providing reasoned advice, including the carrying out of accounting activities. So levels 2 and 3 are pretty specialised. So don't think that you understand accounts and you maybe prepare some financial statements as part of your job means you can do level 2 and level 3. Take heed, they are very specialist. And as always, we really hope you found the video useful. If you've liked it and you haven't done so before, please subscribe. Please tell your friends and colleagues about our channel. And good luck with your APC. Hello everybody, and welcome to our latest bite-sized APC mandatory competency webinar, this time on business planning. As we move through all the competencies, and yes, we're going to cover all the mandatory competencies in this series, business planning is the one that has the widest range in your working career. So whether you end up running your own company, you may already run your own company, or whatever organisation you work for, the organisation of business is really important, both how you operate and to the mechanics of the APC. In this webinar, we're going to look at various business models and have a talk about how you can use these to help and support and enhance your APC. Recently, we've been getting lots of new subscribers to the channel. Thanks to everybody who watches my videos. Thanks to everybody who subscribes. Please subscribe. There's lots of new content coming soon on APC matters and also on other professional matters. So please subscribe. Please click on the little bell next to subscription to get alerts on when I release a new video, which is going to be pretty regular over the next few months. And we hope you really enjoy our content and you find it useful. As always, level 1 is demonstrate knowledge and understanding, and this is how business planning activities contribute to the achievement of corporate objectives, and all candidates must do up to level 1. It's a brilliant competency, this, because it can get your APC experience in the context of where you work. As an assessor, we get some submissions, and it's quite hard to understand what somebody does for a living. A rather vague work experience description, not right sure what the role entails, but actually describing your business planning activities. So some of the concepts in this video can help you explain to your assessors exactly what your role is and where you are in your organisation, and really give your experience context. So as I said, we're going to look at business planning activities and how they lead to the achievement of corporate objectives. As we all know, the motto for RICS is Es modus in rebus, which is Latin for there is measure in all things. And business plans are really key to surveyors because they can measure our performance against set objectives. Also, business planning is a really good life skill and covers a wide range of concepts, from finance to leadership, to bringing innovation, to bringing new solutions in and new products and strategy and working with people. It's a really positive competency, is this, and we really hope you grasp it and get the maximum from it. So first of all, we're going to look at the types of business plan. First of all, we're going to have a strategic business plan, and it's a strategy that is devised to achieve overall goals set by a business, whatever they are. They may be financial growth, they may be survival, but the strategic overall goals by a business, that's a strategic business plan. And it provides the framework for your tactical business decisions and approvals. And this plan can explain the business to people involved in that business implementation in order to inform them and motivate them. It can stimulate change management and become the building block for further business planning and development. And it assists business benchmarking and performance monitoring. So running through the strategic plan, you identify and approve the framework, your vision, your long-term goals and objectives. Then look at the position of the company. What's your marketing capability? What's your technological advantages, if any? And what resources do you have available? And next is the foundation for the tactical operational plan where you can achieve your goals. A strategic plan sets its sights on the future and where the business wants to be, not where it currently is. And it does this by looking at resources, any market restrictions, and any stakeholder demands. And as part of this, an organisation will look at its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Next, we're going to move on to a departmental business plan. And a departmental business plan is a planning document focused on a specific department within a company. Some of the activities done to deliver this is a review of periodic metrics within that department. Do the metrics meet the goals? Do your annual goals need adjusting? What are the department needs and how they meet the goals? And individual staff metrics within the business department team. Next, we're going to look at an operational business plan. And here we have a large crossover with the international standard for quality management, ISO 9001. Now, I advise clients on ISO 9001, and I always say to them, you're probably better using the term business management system rather than quality management system, because that's what it is. It plans your work. So an operational business plan, really there's two types of operational business plan: work planning stage and a delivery stage. And first of all, we're going to look at the work planning stage. So first of all, we need to identify what the requirement is for the professional service that you're going to deliver, the criteria to which you're going to deliver it to, whether it be technical standards, RICS rules of conduct, legislation. Then you're going to look at your resources, and then what are the processes you're going to implement to deliver the project, and what processes are you going to deliver for the work to be accepted by the client. And during all of this, what documented information needs to be produced and retained. Next is the work delivery phase. And again, you need to identify what professional service you're going to deliver and what communications you're going to make with your customers. You're going to determine the customer requirements and manage any changes to those requirements, and then review afterwards those requirements in order to deliver the work. Next, we're going to look at a corporate plan. And this is very similar to an overall strategic plan, but more inwardly focused on operations. The two share many common traits. However, both are long-range plans, and they start from a very high, big picture level and increasingly focus on the details within. An example of this is your organisation writes a vision statement. This is where you define the objectives that will guide your internal decision making to give your business more focus. Then the mission statement. And whilst a vision statement is aspirational, a mission statement should outline how you will achieve your business plan. Next, you identify your company's resources and the scope of works, and list your corporate objectives, making sure these are measurable and achievable, and then listing the strategies to reach those objectives. So we've had a look at business planning. Now we're going to look at organisational structures. Whether you work from a large organisation or a small size organisation, putting an organisation chart into your APC submissions can really put your role in context, both within maybe a project you're working on or maybe within the wider organisation. And we're going to look at the different types of structures for organisations. The first one is a functional organisation structure, and this is a structure used to organise workers, and it's very hierarchical. Next, we're going to look at a divisional structure. And this is a type of organisational structure that groups each organisational function into a separate and defined division. So in the diagram, you've got a surveying division. And it's quite self-contained because you've got admin and finance, marketing, and the surveying delivery. Similarly for the QS on the diagram on the screen. Again, you've got self-contained admin and finance, marketing, then delivery. And similarly for an architectural division of this organisation in the diagram on the screen. Next, we're going to look at a matrix organisational structure. And this is a company structure which the reporting relationship is set up as a grid, a matrix, rather than the traditional hierarchy. In other words, employees have dual reporting relationships, generally to both a functional manager and a project manager. As we can see on the diagram, at the top of the structure is the managing director, then a delivery manager with a delivery team under them, a finance manager with a delivery team under them, and so on and so on. And this means these teams can work on various projects. So one organisation, your delivery can be split across various projects, each with its own project manager. And I see this quite a lot in construction projects where you have, let's say, a health and safety department, and each health and safety professional is allocated to different projects. And the last organisational structure we're going to look at is a flatarchy. And flatarchies are organisations that aren't quite flat, nor are they hierarchical. And these organisations can be relatively flat, yet you can contain an ad hoc hierarchy to work on a project, a function, and then disband. Let me illustrate that to you. On the screen, you can see two teams, Team A and Team B. And there's another team, more of a hierarchical team, also in place. There's two projects, Project 1 and Project 2. All three teams are working on both projects. So Team A and Team B is solely working on Project 1 and Project 2, and the larger hierarchical function is split across various projects. And after this, after the two projects are completed, all these work groups will go back to the teams from which they started from. And these can be from different organisations at different parts of the same organisation. Next, we're going to look at some financial and business definitions. And the first one is working capital. Working capital represents a company's ability to pay its current liabilities with its current assets. A stock, also known as an equity, is a security that represents ownership of a fraction of a corporation. This entitles the owner of the stock to a proportion of the company's assets, and profits equal how much stock they own. And units of stock are called shares. A debtor is a company or individual who owes money. If the debt is in the form of a loan from a financial institution, the debtor is referred to as a borrower. And if the debt is in the form of securities, such as bonds, the debtor is referred to as an issuer. Also, someone who files a voluntary petition to declare bankruptcy is considered a debtor. There's two main types of debtor all business owners need to be aware of. These are in the form of loans, and this is where a company who takes out a bank loan will become a debtor to that bank. And a trade debtor is a customer or client who hasn't yet paid you for your goods and services, and this will stop when the invoice is paid. On the other hand, a creditor is a party that is owed money by another party. On a personal level, it can describe a person who's lent money to a friend and hasn't had it paid back yet. However, in business, a creditor is an individual, business, or any other entity that is owed money by another entity because they have provided a service or product or have loaned them money. Next, we're going to look at financial benchmarking, and this is really important in your APC if you're doing any analysis or project management that requires analysis or similar exercises. So we're going to look at some definitions of financial benchmarking. First of all, we're going to look at current ratios. And a current ratio is the current assets divided by the current liabilities. The result of this, if the ratio was below 2 to 1, this would give cause to concern about the ability of a business to meet its debts and trade successfully. Today, businesses tend to work within a ratio of 1 to 1. Next, quick ratios. Quick ratios are also known as the acid test ratio, and it's useful as it measures liquidity more precisely than the current ratio. This is done because it does not include the value of stock within the current assets, as turning stock into cash takes time. So you can calculate the quick ratio by dividing the current assets without the stock by the current liabilities. Gross profit margin is the gross profit divided by turnover times 100. So it looks at gross profit as a percentage of turnover. A breaking even point is fixed expenses divided by your gross margin, and these are the level of sales you need to achieve to make a profit. Net profit margin is a percentage of the net profit divided by the turnover times by 100. The net profit is calculated after taking account of all costs, and it may be affected by a decline in gross profit or by increased selling or administration costs within the business. If net profit percentage is declining, it's worth looking at which costs increase the most within your organisation. Next, we're going to look at return on capital employed, and this is the net profit divided by net assets times by 100. And this is to measure the level of profit compared to the value of net assets invested in the business. So that concludes the webinar. We hope you found it useful and understand some of the concepts of business planning activities being used to achieve your corporate objectives. Again, it's a really good competency to put into context your experience in terms of where you work and the industry you work in and the projects you're working on. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so. We've got lots of content planned over the next few months, which we hope you're going to find useful and interesting. As always, good luck with your APC. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye. Hi everybody, and welcome to our latest bite-sized APC Mandatory Competency Expert webinar on conflict avoidance, management and dispute resolution. In this competency, all candidates must do Level 1, and this means you must understand conflict avoidance, conflict management and dispute resolution procedures, including, for example, adjudication and arbitration. All candidates must do Level 1 and must understand conflict avoidance, conflict management and dispute resolution procedures, for example for adjudication and arbitration, but appropriate to your pathway. Now, I do understand that some candidates will never get involved in dispute resolution, but you must understand the mechanics, you must understand it for Level 1. If you want to do it Level 2 and Level 3, be very careful. You need to be particularly adept, skilled and practicing in these areas. In the competency requirement guide, RICS even puts quite a clear warning to candidates who want to do Level 3. Beware, it is not for intermediate practitioners, it's for a real advanced level of practice. But the good news is that all candidates must just do up to Level 1 of this competency. We're going to start off with the causes of disputes. Now, these can be differing terms between parties, poor construction of a contract or agreement. Now, in terms of contracts should be applicable to the type of work or location they're intended to cover. There should be early warnings in the contracts that should include obligations for parties to identify and communicate problems earlier. So communications is the key here in order to commit to achieving a quick and amicable resolution. You need good contract management and also a viable compensation event procedure, or CEP. You don't want any ambiguity within a contract, and the clarity of the contract is vital. So any contract should be written in plain, simple English or the language they're actually written in, avoiding legal terms and jargon. The contract needs to be understood by the people actually using it, so plain writing styles and clarity is needed. ADR stands for Alternative Dispute Resolutions. There's many forms of ADR, and on the screen now are just a few forms of alternative dispute resolution. However, negotiation is not alternative dispute resolution because it does not involve intervention by a neutral third party. Negotiation is used to avoid disputes, and you avoid disputes by negotiation and agreement. Now, the benefits of using alternative dispute resolution over litigation through the courts is it's quicker, it's less formal, it's cheaper, and it's also done in private. So if you're deciding whether to use ADR or litigation, you need to think, how long will this dispute take to get through the courts, and who's going to pay for it, and who runs the time scale of taking it to the court. You're dealing in litigation with a lot of factors outside your own hands, whereas ADR, it's less formal, it's cheaper, and it's done in private, unlike at court. Mediation is an affordable and efficient means of problem solving between two disputing parties, and a person called a mediator will help consider all the issues and options for the parties to reach an agreement. And after this dispute is settled, both parties can sign documents agreeing to this outcome. Arbitration is a more formal type of alternative dispute resolution, which involves a tribunal process and an independent arbitrator who hears both sides of the dispute before the arbitrator comes to a decision and makes a decision. An expert or expert witness is a person instructed to give or prepare some expert evidence for the purpose of the conflict or dispute. Now, usually this person is either a qualified professional or somebody with technical knowledge or experience, and their experience will be vital. However, you've got to be careful with expert witness, as it can be based on opinion and not necessarily based on fact. The last form of dispute resolution we're going to look at is professional arbitration on court terms. PACT offers a quick, efficient and cost-effective solution if a commercial lease renewal, and this is just applicable to lease renewals, if there's a dispute on this lease renewal without it needing to go to court. Parties who opt to use this method can have their dispute resolution by a lease renewal specialist without it going to court. So again, it's quicker and can be cheaper and is less formal and can be done in private. So how it works is, with consent of both parties in the lease, all or some of the terms of the lease renewal is delegated to an independent third-party expert who can either act as an arbitrator or an independent expert. The Regulatory Reform Order 2003 abolished the need for tenants to make an early originating application to the court for this. So now the parties can agree to refer their lease renewal matter to arbitration or determination and be bound by the result. So parties are no longer required to obtain court consent in all circumstances. You may have heard of the RICS dispute resolution. It is the world's oldest and largest provider of alternative dispute resolution services in the land, property and construction industries. And RICS DRS can help you find a dispute resolver. It's got specialist panels such as for rent review or for rural practice, and also it provides training, qualifications and accreditations for RICS members who want to get involved in dispute resolution. We're next going to look at how we avoid disputes. We've already mentioned negotiation, but some of the other techniques can be risk management and horizon scanning, and this is where we identify risk areas so that all parties can deal with potential problems before they happen. And it can be used through the lifetime of a project on a continual basis to spotlight problem areas and assess how risks already identified are currently performing. The contract should include obligations for parties to identify and communicate problems early, and this is to commit to achieve a quick and amicable resolution. The contract should specify that parties are required to work together to find solutions and find resolution and actions to the mutual benefit of all involved. You can also use partnering with other specialists to avoid disputes. And at the end of the day, effective client briefings can be the key to avoid disputes. So there's no ambiguity and everybody's clear from the beginning what the client brief is. Many RICS regulated firms, including DIEM Limited, have signed the Conflict Avoidance Pledge. This was set up by various professional bodies such as RICS, Institution of Civil Engineers, Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and many more, including RIBA, Transport for London, and Network Rail, established a global coalition for conflict avoidance within the built environment. It's free to sign up for this and provides lots of information on conflict avoidance. Thanks very much for watching. If you found this video useful, please like it on YouTube, and also please subscribe to our YouTube channel where we're constantly striving to upload useful and interesting subjects. Thanks for watching and goodbye. Hi and welcome to our latest bite-sized APC mandatory competency webinar, this time on the competency data management. My name's David Inman and I'm an APC Chairman Assessor. Level 1 is demonstrating knowledge and understanding of the sources of data, and this includes data gathering and the analysis of this data. So you must know, if you're gathering and analysing data, you must know what methods you're using for collection, where you're collecting it from, how you're analysing it, and how you're storing this data. Data management as a competency is one that quite often shows up on referral reports, so please don't take this competency lightly. First of all, if you're going to be using data as part of your APC, you've got to ask yourself, what data do you need? Don't just go off willy-nilly and just collect data for the sake of it. Ask, what data do you need, and plan how you're going to collect it. And this leads us on to ask yourself, what do you need the data for? And what is the data source? And what format is the data in? Is the data reliable? And can you verify that the data is accurate and a true representation of whatever it is the data is collected for and from? Next, you've got to be clear what you're going to do with the data. If you're going to be analysing it, It's always best to have a method for analysis before you even collect the data. What you've got to be careful of, especially for your APC, is analysing data for the sake of it. Have a clear plan why you want to analyse the data and what results are you seeking from the analysis of the data. The analysis may not reveal the results you want, but you want the data to show you a clear outcome to your analysis. So therefore, you must have a methodology behind your analysis. And how are you going to present the data? If you're going to present it graphically, is the graph readable? Is it useful? And how does it fit in the context of the APC? I hear a lot of candidates talk about handouts, and in 2020, where RICS are conducting remote APC assessments, the handout must be emailed. But in the past, when it's been face-to-face assessing, there's nothing worse than meaningless graphs you can't read, or graphs just for the sake of it. So have a really good think, how are you going to present the data? What do you want the data to show? And again, please don't use graphs just for the sake of it. Use graphs to illustrate a certain point. You need to know why, how, and for how long you need to keep data for. Your first port of call for this will be your employer's data protection and data retention policy. So know your employer's policy for this. And also know any legal requirements for data retention. If you're using databases and software that manage data as part of your work, please know how it works, such as CAFM systems for facilities management. Know the context in which you're managing data and the actual mechanics, because if you start mentioning CAFM systems in your APC submissions, the chances are you're going to be asked a question about them. So if you're referring to data and any software in your written submissions, make sure 1, you're actually using it, and 2, you understand how it works. If you're using BIM, understand how it works. Don't just refer to it in your written submissions. But if you're using it in conjunction with contracts, know how it refers to contracts. And make sure you have the up-to-date knowledge, such as the NEC 4 contracts refers to BIM as information modelling, not BIM. So don't forget, if you're using BIM in a contractual format, make sure you're up to date and knowledgeable about the contract you're using BIM within. In terms of data management legislation, this has got to be related in the country in which you practice. I practice in the UK, so we're going to use the United Kingdom legislation as an example. But wherever in the world you're working, make sure you know the legislation and understand it. An example of this is in the United Kingdom. The Data Protection Act 2018 controls how your personal information is used by organisations, businesses and the government. And the Data Protection Act 2018 is the UK's implementation of the General Data Protection Regulation, which was brought in by the European Union, and this is more commonly known as GDPR. Under GDPR, as implemented by the Data Protection Act 2018, everybody responsible for using personal data has to follow strict rules called the Data Protection Principles. And this is to make sure the information is used fairly, lawfully and transparently, used in a way that's adequate, relevant and limited to only what is necessary, used for specified, explicit purposes, is accurate and if needed kept up to date, is kept for no longer than is necessary, and handled in a secure way, including protection against unlawful or unauthorised processing, access, loss, destruction or damage. And there's stronger legal protections for more sensitive information, such as on ethnicity, race, your political opinions, genetics, biometrics for identification, health and sex life or orientation. and the separate safeguards for personal data relating to criminal convictions and offences. Under the Data Protection Act 2018, you have got a right to find out what information the government and any other organisations stores about yourself. And this gives you the right to be informed how your data is being used, access personal data, have correct data updated, have data erased, stop or restrict the processing of your data, the portability of your data, and object in certain circumstances to how data is processed. Now, turn this on its head and think about anybody you collect and process and keep data on. They have the right in the United Kingdom to ask you, or your employer, all those questions. So that's why data protection is so important. Now, going back to GDPR, it is a European Union regulation. So in principle, it won't apply to the UK from the end of the transition period that ends on the 31st of December 2020. However, if you operate inside the United Kingdom, you'll need to comply with the Data Protection Act and any subsequent legislation. Now, currently, the government intends to incorporate the GDPR into UK data protection law from the end of the transition period in 2020. So in practice, there's going to be very little change to the core data protection principles after the end of the transition period. However, it's worth noting that the EU version of the GDPR may also still apply if you operate outside of the United Kingdom in Europe, or offer goods or services to individuals in Europe, or monitor the behaviour of individuals in the European Union. And also the GDPR will still apply to any organisations in Europe that you send data to from the United Kingdom. So you need to agree with them and decide how you're going to transfer any personal data to the EU or to the UK from the EU in line with GDPR. So think about the personal data you're collecting as part of your APC. Staff records, visitor records, contractor records, photographs, CCTV footage, health records, the list goes on. And think about what degree these need to be protected under legislation, and also how your employer applies this government legislation. Thanks very much for watching what is quite a complicated subject, and it surrounds us all the time. It's amazing how much personal data we share with third parties and how you may be collecting as part of your APC. So please be careful. It is rather a tricky area of legislation that you need to understand, and you will need to understand it for level 1 as a minimum. So if you enjoyed this webinar or any of our others, please subscribe. The number of subscribers has risen quite a lot recently, and we really do appreciate it. It's fantastic. We're going to keep adding more comments to our channel. As always, it's always going to be free of charge, and we hope you keep on finding it useful and keep on enjoying it. As always, my final word is going to be good luck with your APC, and thanks very much for watching. Hi everybody, and welcome to our latest bite-sized APC Mandatory Competency APC Expert webinar, this time on the diversity, inclusion and teamworking competency. This competency is about people, and it's about your role within a team, and it's how to establish a diverse and inclusive team, how they interact, their behaviour, how they communicate with each other, and how this team leads to success. You may think that you recruit a team. Well, recruitment is not enough. A large part of the recruitment process involves avoiding unconscious bias. And we're going to look at this a little bit later on in the webinar. But within teams are individual people, and you need to identify these individual strengths and weaknesses within the team and how they interact with the rest of the team. If there's any team planning planning of individual development within the team, please plan this carefully and always have a clear map of where your team wants to go. The old saying is true, there is no I in team. So you need to share your goals as individuals within a team, as the overall goals together lead to greater success for the whole team. And create a good team culture. And to do this, you can get support by developing internal diversity and inclusion policies, including any applicable non-discrimination or anti-harassment policies within your workplace. And the main thing is to stick to it. It's okay having policies, it's okay having written procedures, but you've got to stick to them and make them work for everybody in your team. Not just the team's management, but all members of the team need to inspire each other and keep the work interesting. If you're in a management position, don't forget to delegate. Don't try and do everything yourself. Have faith in your team's ability and also develop your team. Some people may need training to become competent in a certain area in order for them to delegate, but look to your own leadership when you're delegating. However, don't be a bad boss. It's not good for you, and it's not good for the team and the individuals within the team. And bad bosses make teams less successful. And if you're in a management position, set the right tone, which will lead your team. And also others within the team also set the right tone. Because it's all about the team. And don't forget, accountability goes both ways. Whilst if you're in a management position, you can delegate. Delegate doesn't mean getting rid of the responsibility. You're still accountable, and accountability, don't forget, goes both ways in all parts of your team. I mentioned before unconscious bias. Unconscious bias can influence decisions in recruitment, promotion, and performance management. And it can be discriminatory when the unconscious bias relates to a protected characteristic, such as colour, religion, or sexual orientation, or gender identity. To overcome unconscious bias, you need to be aware of it. So don't rush decisions, take your time over them, and consider all the issues properly. And justify your decisions by evidence and record the reasons for your decisions, for example, during a recruitment or promotion process. And try and work with a wider range of people in order to get to know them as individuals. And this could include working with different teams or even a colleague based in a different location. Always focus on the positive behaviour of people and not negative stereotypes. And employers should implement policies and procedures which limit the influence of individual characteristics and preferences. With any processes within a team, please say what you're going to do, as communication is vital within teams. As part of this, collaborate, contribute, and encourage all members of the team to contribute. And by doing all of this, you'll form close team bonding, which again will help the success of the team. These processes may involve some negotiation, and don't be afraid to stand your ground. However, if you're giving feedback to members of your team or to people working for you, make sure that feedback is realistic. Avoid bombarding colleagues with emails. It's rather unproductive for somebody to be sat there responding to emails all day when a quick phone call or other form of electronic communication, or even popping to see somebody in the office, may be quicker. And also beware of emails copying the world in. Be careful who is actually interested. You need to be direct with your communications, to the point and accurate, and this enhances the success of a team. In certain countries, there is specific legislation involving diversity and inclusion. In the United Kingdom, the main piece of legislation is the Equality Act 2010. For level 1 of this competency, you'll need to understand the legal framework for equality and diversity within your country of practice. And we're going to look at an example, the Equality Act in the United Kingdom. Before the Equality Act 2010, there were several pieces of legislation to cover discrimination, including the Sex Discrimination Act 1975, the Race Relations Act 1976, and the Disability Discrimination Act 1995. All of these were repealed and replaced by the Equality Act. And the Equality Act legally protects people from discrimination in the workplace and in wider society. In terms of RICS, I think it's a real leader in promoting diversity and inclusion. In the past, it's not been the most diverse profession, and RICS understands this and is doing a lot to improve our inclusivity. One fantastic scheme that my firm signs up for, and it's completely free of charge, is the Inclusive Employer Quality Mark. For this, you've got to sign up to certain diversity and inclusion principles. But what people don't realise, it's not just for RICS regulated firms or surveying firms. Any companies can apply for it. And I would encourage employers, both in the private and public sectors, of any description, to apply for the quality mark. DIEM Limited has found it really useful to our diversity inclusion work, and we do recognise the work also RICS does in this area, and we're proud to be part of it. Also have a look on the RICS website for the diversity and inclusion pages. There's some really good content on there and some leading edge thinking from members of our profession. Thank you very much for watching the webinar. If you've enjoyed it or found it useful, please subscribe to our channel. We're going to be adding regular content on APC related matters. We hope you enjoy it. In the meantime, as always, good luck with your APC and thanks for watching.
Hi everybody, and welcome to this APC Expert webinar on inclusive environments. This is actually a request from one of our subscribers, Ajish, who says, "Hi David, can you do a short video on inclusive environments?" Well, Ajish, thanks for that comment, and here you are. Here's a quick, bite-sized mandatory competency webinar on that subject. Environments should not present people with barriers with their enjoyment of that activity or participation of activities within it. Looking at what are inclusive environments enable everyone to access the opportunities an environment presents regardless of their age, disability, ethnicity, gender expression, faith, or economic circumstance, including when they are travelling with children or carrying luggage or shopping. I'm hoping what you're seeing here are links to the 5 RICS ethical standards: act with integrity, always provide a high standard of service, act in a way that promotes trust in the profession, treat others with respect, and take responsibility. I'm based and practice in the United Kingdom, so let's look at the legislation in this country. The Equality Act 2010 is the key legislation relating to equality and accessibility in the UK. It replaced a range of previous anti-discrimination laws, including the Sex Discrimination Act, the Race Relations Act, and the Disability Discrimination Act.
If you're not based in the UK and doing your APC, please look up and please understand local equality legislation in your area of practice. There are other legal requirements in the UK that need to be considered, such as Part M of the building regulations, and this sets out the minimum accessibility requirements which should be met under the Building Act 1984. Also, the National Planning Policy Framework identifies the need for planning policies and decisions to create places that are safe, inclusive, accessible, and promote health and well-being. And the public sector equality duty requires in the UK that public authorities consider how their facilities or services affect people who are protected under the Equality Act. Let's look now on application of these requirements. The Equality Act states that there should be reasonable access given. Permanent and semi-permanent disabled access systems do need to comply with Building Regulations Part M, any technical standards, and the National Planning Policy Framework. Now, if you're doing level 2 of this competency, you need to apply your knowledge in order to deliver accessible and inclusive environments. And level 3 is giving reasoned advice on these concepts, on how they can deliver accessible and inclusive environments. One thing that's worth mentioning is I've seen in some APC candidate submission them refer to DDA compliance. Now, there is no such thing anymore as DDA compliance, as we've already said, the Disability and Discrimination Act was replaced in 2010 by the Equality Act. However, we've mentioned reasonable access, but this still remains open to interpretation. So at levels 2 and 3, it's how you practice giving practical advice, which can be open to interpretation. So if you're doing levels 2 and level 3, be very clear on your understanding and on the reasons behind your decision making. Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, and please also check out our APC Pass courses on Udemy.
Hi everybody, and welcome to this latest APC Expert webinar, the latest in our bite-sized mandatory competency series, this time on the sustainability competency. When we use the term sustainability, it is the balance between 3 tiers of society: economy, the environment, and the community or social factors. The most common definition of sustainability comes from what was called the Brundtland Report in 1987, the formal title of which was Our Common Future. And the Brundtland Report was a UN project for sustainable development. And from this, probably the key definition of sustainable development arose. And that definition is: sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And this is seen as the key and the most common and the most popular definition of sustainable development. And just out of interest, the Brundtland Report is named after Gro Harlem Brundtland. She is a Norwegian politician who served 3 times as Norwegian Prime Minister and was the Director General of the World Health Organization from 1998 to 2003. And she chaired this commission, and therefore it was called the Brundtland Commission, and subsequently the Brundtland Report. So the actual sustainability competency, level 1 is understanding the concepts and the balance between economic, environmental and social factors.
Level 2 is giving practical application and knowing when specialist advice is needed. And Level 3 is giving reasoned professional advice on sustainability policy, law and best practice. So looking at some topics behind the concepts. First of all, economy. You may want to look at tax, legislation, profit, supply chain and jobs in the context of your work and your projects that you're using for your case study. Next, community or social factors, and here you can look at legislation regarding this topic, equality, fair pay, community benefits to the projects you're working on, community infrastructure and health and well-being. And finally, the environment. You can look at legislation around this. You can look at how to protect the environment, and when we're talking about the environment, we can use land, water, air, or ecology as factors within this, minimising waste, combating and dealing with climate change and its effects, energy efficiency and materials. Aren't definitive, but there's some areas you might want to look at within your case study or your work you're doing and defining your competencies, just to look at the work and the factors you're looking at and the balance between them to meet this sustainability model. We're going to look at a slightly different concept now. It's a sustainability concept brought about by the United Nations Global Compact. Now, on this channel, there's already some webinars, some free content about real estate life cycle and the work RICS have done with the United Nations Global Compact. So I'm not going to go into it too much today. I'll put the links to the webinar in the text below. But instead of a 3-tier approach, there's a 4-tier approach: labour, environmental, anti-corruption and human rights, acting as the balance as a sustainability model. And to help businesses deliver on this, there's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And again, I've already published a webinar on this channel about this. Please check it out and I'll include the link below rather than go through it again today. But there's 17 Sustainable Development Goals to help transform our world, which really this is all about. Now, RICS are some of the leaders in this field, and they've produced a fantastic guidance called Advancing Responsible Business in Land, Construction and Real Estate Use and Investment, in conjunction with the United Nations. Again, I'll put the link in the text below. I recommend all APC candidates read it, understand it, and you will find it useful, I guarantee. Similarly, RICS have published a Sustainable Business Toolkit. It's an Excel-based free resource that can help identify sustainability factors within a development or property management or real estate development project. It'll be really helpful with this competency. So again, I recommend you have a look at it. Recently, RICS have launched the Value the Planet campaign that looks at sustainable development within the profession and sustainability within our profession. The hashtag, if you want to look on social media, is #ValueThePlanet. And aligned to this, the RICS Awards have completely been transformed into the RICS Social Impact Awards. Whilst in 2020 there's going to be a lot of disruption with what's going on in the world to the actual awards, please have a look on the RICS website at some of the concepts and some of the information involved. So that's a quick overview of the RICS sustainability competency. Everybody's got to do level 1. Level 2 and level 3 I would only recommend for people who are in related work. I did the environment pathway to APC many years ago, and I actually did level 3 sustainability. So levels 2 and level 3, be careful, you need to be practicing sustainability related work to deliver this. So thanks again for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please tell your friends and colleagues. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Everybody that subscribes supports the channel, and it's fantastic and we do appreciate it. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to speak to you again delivering another bite-sized mandatory competency APC expert webinar very soon. Hi everybody, and welcome to our latest bite-sized APC mandatory competency expert webinar, and this time we're going to be covering all of the senior professional assessment mandatory competencies. I'm just going to begin with a word of warning. I think that senior professional assessment is the hardest route to APC. So if you're doing it, please be 100% sure that you fit the role, you've got the right experience, especially for these 3 senior professional mandatory competencies. And the 3 mandatory competencies that are specific to the senior professional route, and the 3 mandatory competencies that are specific to the senior professional assessment are leadership, managing people, and managing resources, but managing resources excludes human resources. And all candidates must do up to a minimum of level 2. And in this webinar, we're just going to explore the level 1 and level 2 requirements of these 3 competencies. First of all, leadership at level 1 looks at leadership theory. So you're going to need to know what a leader is, how a leader creates an inspiring vision, how they motivate and inspire people to engage with that vision, how you manage the delivery of the vision, and how you coach and build a team so that that team is more effective in achieving the vision. And also you'll need an awareness of the different theories of leadership, such as a trait theory. And a trait theory of leadership helps you to identify your traits and qualities. For example, are you assertive? Are you a good decision maker? Are you likeable? And what traits do you have that are helpful when leading others? Next on are behavioural theories. And these can be summed up by asking, what does a good leader do? An example of this is the work done by Kurt Lewin in the 1930s, who was a German-American psychologist. He developed a framework behaved on a leader's behaviour, and he argued that there's 3 types of leader. An autocratic leader that makes decisions themselves without consulting the team, democratic leaders that allow the team to provide the leader with input before making a decision, and a laissez-faire leader who doesn't interfere and allow people within the team to make their own decisions. But the laissez-faire leadership model needs experts within the team to make these decisions for you. Another type of leader uses the contingency theory, where situations influence good leadership. So there's no set way of leadership, it's leadership appropriate to that situation. And finally, power and influence theories. What is the source of the leader's power? And these are the different ways that leaders use power to influence what gets done. And models can be leading by example, transactional approach, and French and Raven's 5 forms of power, which is a model that highlights 3 types of positional power: legitimate, reward, and coercion. So leadership theory is a whole world of study by itself, and this is why you need to be at actually a senior level and hopefully had some management training to understand level 1. Now level 2 is applying the leadership theory, devising strategy for leadership, and also measuring performance for this leadership. The next competency is managing people. And at level 1, a lot of this is human resources theory and legislation. Now in terms of theory, the main one is of course Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's already a webinar around learning Maslow's hierarchy of needs on our YouTube channel, and I'll put the link to this webinar in the description below. But also know the functions of human resources. And these functions include talent acquisition and recruitment, pay management and negotiation, benefits administration, training and development of staff, performance, appraisal and management of this, employee and labour relations, and compliance management. But you need to be actively involved in managing people. Even if you're relying on an internal human resources function in your organisation, you're going to still have to know the level 1 theory. And level 2 is applying this legislation, and it could be in recruitment, exiting people from your organisation, and managing people within their contract of employment, and also managing your team's performance. And the final senior professional assessment mandatory competency is on managing resources, which excludes human resources. We've already done a webinar on the APC accounting principles competency, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. But for this competency, you need to know the theory behind and also deliver. Are you monitoring for the financial performance for your organisation, such as using key financial statements, aged debtors, trial balance, inventory records, using working capital statements and financial ratios, and using fund and cash flow statements? And are you analysing overheads, marketing expenses, human resources? Are you creating dashboards to show this information, or are you managing a team that creates these dashboards for you? And are you carrying out competitive analysis of how you manage resources to maybe some set benchmarks? As I said, be very careful if you're considering doing the senior professional assessment. It's not impossible, but you need to be at a very senior level, at a decision-making level, not necessarily running your own firm. It is for people who are movers and shakers in the industry, but they've still got to know the other mandatory requirements, and deliver the other mandatory competencies and the competencies within your pathway, but maybe slightly distance from the day-to-day technical work due to their senior level and their leadership level. But the candidates still need to know the technical subjects and delivering them at a managerial level. If you found this webinar useful, please subscribe to our channel, and as always, good luck with your APC, and thanks for watching.